My husband booked a secret cruise with his lover, but I was already in the next cabin. I waited for their toast, then knocked next door with her fiancé and his printed receipt. The email came at 3:17 p.m., an automatic confirmation from Paradise Cruise Lines. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, until I saw the sender, our shared family cloud. My husband's name, Elliot Brooks, printed neatly beside another, Vanessa Cole. A 5-day Caribbean cruise. Ocean view suite. Champagne welcome. Couples massage. All booked for the exact week he said he'd be at a business conference in Seattle. My coffee didn't spill. My hands didn't shake. I just stared at the screen, rereading the details. Cabin 1243, deck 10, starboard side. The precision of it, the cabin number, the upgrades, made it more humiliating somehow. This wasn't a fling. It was an itinerary. Then another notification blinked on my phone. A photo, lingerie, blonde hair, mirror selfie, the caption. Can't wait for you to take this off on our trip. Vanessa, the new customer service director. The one he'd insisted we invite to our Christmas party. The one who'd shaken my hand and smiled too politely. I didn't scream or throw things. Instead, I remembered her laughing at a charity gala 3 months earlier, flashing a diamond ring, bragging about her fiancé, some Silicon Valley type named Bradley. A strange calm took over. I opened my laptop, searched Paradise Cruise Line's deck plan, and found cabin 1245, right next door. 20 minutes later, my own booking confirmation arrived. Same ship, same dates, adjacent cabin. That night, while he texted, "Working late again, don't wait up," I replied, "Of course. Have a good night." Then I started packing. By morning, I had memorized every line of that confirmation email, his and mine. The symmetry was perfect. 2 cabins, 1 wall between them, and 1 week to dismantle a lie. But first, I needed an ally. Not a friend, not a therapist, someone who deserved the truth as much as I did. So I found Bradley. It wasn't difficult. Vanessa's fiancé was practically famous online, sleek LinkedIn profile, startup founder, the kind of man who posted about building futures together. I sent him an email, attaching a single screenshot, the cruise booking. "Mr. Bradley, I believe your fiancé and my husband have travel plans next week that may interest you. Would you have time to talk tomorrow?" He replied 3 minutes later. Where and when? The next afternoon, I was already at the cafe when he walked in, taller than I expected, expression unreadable. No introductions, no small talk. Just, "Show me." I slid my phone across the table. He scrolled, expression tightening. Then silence, the heavy kind that fills a room when both people's worlds are burning in parallel. "They really booked it under their real names," he said finally. "Boldness," I replied. "Or stupidity. Hard to tell sometimes." By the time our coffees had gone cold, the outline of our plan was set. I'd board the cruise as a solo traveler in cabin 1245. He'd booked the same excursions they had. We'd accidentally cross paths at dinners, shows, the pool deck. Bradley leaned back, his voice calm but sharp. "You're not just planning to confront them, are you?" I met his eyes. "No. I'm planning to ruin their vacation one smile at a time." We boarded separately. I wore a simple navy dress and sunglasses, the kind of nondescript look that lets you vanish into a crowd. Bradley moved through the terminal with the casual confidence of a man who hadn't expected betrayal to smell so bitter. We agreed on signals. A raised eyebrow meant now, a limp hand on the railing meant divert. Everything rehearsed, nothing left to chance. On the ship, the first night felt surreal. Elliot and Vanessa were every bit the picture, laughing at the captain's toast, leaning close in a way that used to feel intimate only with me. The sound of their laughter filtered through the thin wall between our cabins and felt like a public announcement of my humiliation. I made a show of reading on my balcony while they clinked glasses next door. The sea gleamed, indifferent. Day 2, Bradley and I bumped into them by accident at the ship's coffee bar. Vanessa's face fluttered when she recognized me, a flash of something between guilt and annoyance, but Elliot smiled like nothing was wrong. Bradley introduced himself warmly, the kind of measured charm that puts people on their best behavior. Vanessa's hand closed briefly over Elliot's arm. It felt like a small, defiant claim. That evening, the 4 of us were assigned to the same excursion group, snorkeling at a coral reef. I watched Vanessa adjust her sun hat, watched Elliot show off about his snorkel gear, as if performing. Bradley and I stayed a few steps behind, trading quiet observations. "He's been married 15 years, Bradley murmured. "He has a routine for choosing whom to hurt." I answered nothing. I didn't need to. On the boat out to the reef, Bradley leaned close and said, almost whispering, "Tonight. Captain's table." My heart did a small, traitorous leap. It was the most public dinner, the kind of stage where appearances mattered and whispers could spread. I let the thought settle like a pebble in my palm. We were ready to shift the tide. When the sun dipped and the ship dressed itself in lights, I smoothed my skirt and rehearsed the calmness I'd practiced for a week. Next to me, Bradley checked his watch and nodded. The first course would be served in under an hour. Outside, the ocean breathed steady and black. Inside, something else was about to break. The dining hall glowed like a floating ballroom, chandeliers swaying gently with the ship's rhythm, silver cutlery glinting under soft light. The captain's table sat in the center, surrounded by guests dressed for elegance and illusion. Elliot and Vanessa were already there when I entered, laughing too loudly, trying too hard. His hand rested on hers like a claim staked in borrowed land. Bradley followed a few steps behind me, straightening his cufflinks, every inch the confident professional. The maitre d' looked at our reservations, smiled politely, and gestured toward two open seats, directly across from them. Fate, or maybe karma, had an impeccable sense of humor. Elliot's eyes widened for just a fraction of a second. "Claire," he said, his voice cracking slightly before smoothing itself out. "What on earth?" "Small world," I said calmly, sitting down. "Didn't expect to see a familiar face here." Vanessa froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Bradley, perfectly in character, extended a hand across the table. "Bradley Turner," he said smoothly. "Pleasure to meet you both." The silence that followed was exquisite, tight, stretched, trembling with unsaid things. Then Elliot forced a laugh, the same one he used in board meetings when caught off guard. "What are the odds, right?" "Almost as unlikely," I said, swirling my wine, "as booking the same ship, same week, same deck." He flinched. Vanessa reached for her glass, but her hand trembled. Bradley smiled, that polite, unbothered smile that hides a knife behind it. Dinner continued, polite conversation layered with static tension. I asked Vanessa about her upcoming wedding, watching her pale under the candlelight. Bradley listened, nodding with feigned interest. "Oh," he said softly, "so you're engaged. Congratulations. June, right?" Her eyes darted to him, then to me, then down to her plate. When dessert arrived, I excused myself to get some air. Bradley followed a moment later. We met on the outer deck, where the sea whispered against the hull. He let out a quiet laugh. I almost felt sorry for them. "Don't," I said, looking out at the horizon. "We're only at the appetizer." The next morning began with the sound of their laughter again, muffled through the thin wall, sharp as glass. I made coffee, sat by the balcony, and let the bitterness of it match the taste in my mouth. From where I sat, I could see their deck chairs 2 cabins down, Vanessa's hair catching alight, Elliot rubbing sunscreen onto her shoulder like a man rehearsing tenderness. Bradley appeared a few minutes later, leaning on the railing of his own cabin. "They're early risers," he said. "Habit," I replied. He always liked to start days pretending everything was normal. We spent the morning on the promenade deck, following our schedule of coincidences. Every few hours, we'd appear somewhere near them, never directly confronting, just present enough to unsettle. By noon, Vanessa's smile had grown tight. By evening, Elliot had stopped holding her hand. That night, the ship hosted a masquerade gala, ornate masks, string quartet, champagne towers. I wore silver. Bradley, a dark mask that made his eyes look almost amused. When we entered the ballroom, Vanessa's gaze found me instantly. She froze, glass halfway to her lips. Elliot noticed a second later. "Dance with me," Bradley said quietly. We stepped into the slow rhythm of the music, drifting close enough that they couldn't ignore us. I felt Elliot stare on the back of my neck, that mix of panic and disbelief. Vanessa whispered something to him. He didn't answer. Between songs, Bradley leaned closer, his breath barely brushing my ear. "She knows you're not here by accident." "Good," I murmured. "Let her feel it." When the music ended, we left our glasses half full on the table and walked past them. I didn't glance their way until the last second. Vanessa's mask had slipped crookedly. Elliot's jaw was set tight. Back in my cabin, the silence pressed in. I could still hear faint voices through the wall, arguing now, not laughing. I smiled to myself, not out of cruelty, but closure. For the first time in years, I had control of the noise. By the third day, their laughter had vanished. The wall that once carried muffled joy now throbbed with quiet tension. A slammed drawer, a half-muttered curse, the hollow silence that follows people who've run out of lies. Bradley knocked softly on my door that morning, 2 raps, our signal. "Breakfast?" he asked when I opened. "They'll be there," I said. "Exactly." The ship's buffet was crowded with couples in sundresses and linen shirts. Elliot sat near the window, pretending to read brochure, while Vanessa scrolled her phone. I walked straight past their table with my tray, close enough that he smelled the perfume he'd once bought me in duty-free. Bradley followed, his tone deliberately casual. "So," he said loudly, "your ex-husband planned the same trip? That's wild luck." Vanessa's fork clattered against her plate. Elliot's head snapped up, eyes wide. I didn't even look at them. I just smiled faintly and said, "Life's full of coincidences." We took our seats 2 tables away, leaving them in silence thick enough to taste. Later that afternoon, during the shore excursion in Nassau, we ran into them again. The 4 of us stood awkwardly in the customs line. No escape, no polite way out. Vanessa broke first. "This is harassment," she hissed under her breath. Bradley turned to her, his expression calm and surgical. "No, Vanessa. This is exposure." Elliot's jaw tightened. "You planned this." "Not as well as you did," I said evenly. The line moved forward, sunlight glinting off the sea. No one else heard the conversation, just 4 people trapped in a polite nightmare of their own making. That night, they skipped dinner. Their lights stayed off long before midnight. Through the wall, I heard only faint shuffling and the creak of a suitcase zipper. Maybe guilt, maybe panic, maybe both. Bradley texted me 1 line before I fell asleep. "They're unraveling faster than I expected." I replied, "Good. Tomorrow, we finish what we started." The 4th day began strangely calm, like the quiet before a courtroom verdict. The Caribbean sun was relentless, reflecting off the water in shards of silver. I wore white that morning, not for symbolism, but because it made me look untouchable. Bradley was already at the deck cafe, 2 coffees waiting. "They checked out of breakfast early," he said, "avoiding us." "Then we'll find them where they can't hide," I replied. That afternoon, the ship hosted a photography event, couples posing for portraits against the endless blue sea. Elliot loved those performative moments. Vanessa loved attention. Perfect. We arrived just as they stepped in front of the camera. I positioned myself behind the photographer, pretending to scroll my phone. When the flash went off, I lifted my head. Our eyes met, Elliot's widening, Vanessa's freezing mid-smile. The photographer, oblivious, said cheerfully, "Let's do one more, closer this time." Bradley laughed quietly beside me. "They're shaking." "Good," I whispered. "Let the photos show it." Afterward, we walked past them as if nothing had happened. I heard Elliot hiss, "This is insane. She's stalking us." Vanessa snapped back, "You said she'd never find out." That night, I received an unexpected call to our cabin phone, a number I recognized instantly. Elliot's voice came through, brittle and low. "Claire, we need to talk." I let a long pause fill the space. "About the weather?" I asked. "About everything. Please. Alone." I almost laughed at the word alone. For years, I had been alone, while he built this parallel life, while I defended him to friends, while he rewrote our marriage into a prop. Deck 10, starboard side. I said finally, "I'm already here." When he arrived, he looked smaller than I remembered, shoulders tense, fading under guilt. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Oh, I do," I replied quietly. "Because you already did." He tried to speak first, but the words tangled in his throat. "It wasn't what you think," he said finally, the most predictable lie in the world. "Oh." I tilted my head. So the romantic cruise with matching robes and champagne wasn't romantic. His jaw flexed. It was a mistake. She is engaged, I finished for him. To the man who's been watching you two all week. His confusion lasted only a heartbeat before realization hit. Bradley, he whispered. You knew. I knew, I said evenly. From the moment your conference email arrived. From the second I saw her name next to yours. He took a step closer. Claire, please. We can fix this. I laughed, a small, disbelieving sound. You broke something that doesn't get fixed. You signed a receipt for betrayal, Elliot. You booked it, paid for it, confirmed it twice. He looked around the empty deck, lowering his voice. What do you want? Money? An apology? I stepped forward until we were inches apart. I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything and have no one to blame but yourself. Before he could answer, a calm voice came from behind him. I think he's starting to get it. Bradley, hands in his pockets, tone polite, eyes sharp. Elliot froze. Vanessa appeared seconds later, pale and trembling. Bradley, please let me explain. He cut her off with quiet precision. No need. I've seen everything I needed to. The four of us stood there in the open air, the hum of the ship's engines beneath our feet, the sky bruised with sunset. You two wanted a vacation, I said softly. Congratulations. You got one. Then I turned to Bradley. Ready? He nodded. Showtime. We walked together, me and Bradley, past the open-air bar toward the atrium where the captain's farewell gala was already underway. The hall glittered with sequins, laughter, and the hum of live jazz. No one noticed the quiet tension following us like a shadow. Bradley had the printed receipts in his jacket pocket, 2 bookings, 2 payments, 2 matching lies. I carried something smaller, a USB drive with the photos and email confirmations synced from the family cloud. Proof doesn't need to shout. It just needs to exist. When we entered the gala, Vanessa and Elliot were already there, sitting stiffly at a table near the dance floor, pretending to be a couple again. For a second, I almost pitied them, 2 people still clinging to an illusion while the world tilted beneath them. The master of ceremonies was mid-speech, thanking the guests for their unforgettable week at sea, when Bradley caught his eye and raised a hand. Calmly, like a man with nothing left to lose. Excuse me, he said. Before we all disembark, I'd like to thank Paradise Cruise Lines for their attention to detail. The mic caught the quiet edge in his tone. People turned. He held up the printed receipts. It's not every day 2 couples book the same trip, same dates, same deck, even adjacent cabins. Wouldn't you agree, Elliot? Every head swiveled. Elliot's face drained of color. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth. The silence was knife-sharp. I stepped beside Bradley, meeting Elliot's stunned stare. I just wanted to return something you left behind, I said, sliding the USB across the tablecloth. Copies of your emails. Don't worry, I backed them up. A ripple of whispers swept through the room. Vanessa stood, stammering. This isn't, you don't understand. But no one cared for explanations. The damage was already done, neatly, publicly, irrevocably. Bradley looked at me once more, steady and quiet. Ready to leave? More than ever, I said. And together we walked out, leaving them sitting in the bright, humiliating light of truth. The next morning, the ship docked in Miami under a pale sunrise. I watched from a balcony as port workers tied the ropes, seagulls circling above like they were curious witnesses. Cabin 1243 stayed silent. No laughter, no movement, just drawn curtains and the echo of a ruined fantasy. Bradley knocked softly on my door one last time. He looked different now, lighter somehow, though there was still that edge of disbelief in his smile. You sure you don't want to see how they crawl off the ship? He asked. I've seen enough, I said. Let them pack their shame in those perfect little suitcases. We walked off the ship side by side, saying nothing until we reached the taxi line. For a moment, he just stood there studying me. You didn't do it for revenge, he said finally. You did it for closure. Maybe both, I admitted. Closure just sounds better in daylight. He nodded. If you ever need someone who understands, you know where to find me. I smiled faintly. I think I'll take a break from shared itineraries for a while. He laughed, genuine this time, and waved before disappearing into the crowd. I watched him go, then looked back once, at the massive ship gleaming in the sun, at the place where I'd stopped being the quiet wife in the background. When I reached my car, my phone buzzed one new message. It was from Elliot. "Please, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it without replying. As the city opened up ahead of me, I rolled down the window, letting the salt air rush in. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was simply free, and for the first time in years, the silence didn't hurt. It healed.